morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. April is National Financial Literacy Month. Of course, people in general handle money on a daily basis in some way, shape, or form. So it's important to have in-depth understanding of the fundamentals of how we spend, save, and invest our hard-earned money. My first guest is a former Wisconsin state representative, a former stockbroker, and he runs a nonprofit called The Financial Promise, which teaches financial literacy to businesses as well as individuals. Jason Fields is also the new president and CEO of Madison Region Economic Partnership, the economic development agency for the 8-county Madison region of South Central Wisconsin. How are you, Jason?
I am good. It is good to be back on your show. And thank you for having me during, I think something you and I are both passionate about, and that's making sure people understand financial literacy and putting best practices in place. So thank you for that and your commitment.
Absolutely. Thank you for finding the time to help us out. I called you like I need your expertise, so come through if you want. So we know this past year has been very tough, and the pandemic has definitely caused stress for many people when dealing with personal finances. So I'm hoping that you can at least give us a few tips and also enlighten us on some ways to make our money work for us during this National Financial Literacy Month. So in your opinion, what's the biggest money mistake that people make?
The biggest money mistake that people make is not having a game plan or not knowing how much money you're spending and versus coming in and losing sight of that. Because when you don't have a game plan, what happens is you're more prone to making emotional choices. You're more prone to spending money that you don't have in order to feel good. And we've been hit with, quite honestly, a lot of trauma, right? I mean, this pandemic and the racial unjust, it's a lot of stuff that hit us the last 2 years. And this is now more than ever a time where we need to start looking at ourselves and our lives and going, okay, where do I want to go financially? What do I need to do? Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to get another job? Do I need to start a business? And so the biggest mistake, Andrea, is that if you don't have a game plan, you're just out there. And so you don't know what you're spending money on. And if you don't know what you're spending money on, odds are you're spending a whole bunch of it. And that's the number one mistake that a lot of people make. No game plan at all. And so you're just going day to day and you're not changing anything.
Yeah, and bad habits play a role in that too. We talk about people that are in the drive-through getting coffee every day, and I'm a witness. You can easily spend $10 to $12 just getting a pastry and a coffee. And if you do that every day, there are people who eat out every day. I'm guilty of that too. If you really sit down and you start adding that up, you really start to say, okay, well, I could go buy a coffee maker and make my own coffee. And also go to the grocery store and cook for yourself. And it lasts longer, right?
I'll tell you what happens when you're not planning. And I did this calculation for my wife and I. We both work. I come home. We don't want to cook. We average a little bit over $1,200 a month on just eating out.
Wow.
And now you think about that. That's $1,200 that could be geared towards paying off credit card bills, reducing your student loan debt, planning for retirement, planning for a vacation. That's $1,200 every month going down the drain. Over a year, that's over $12,000 something dollars.
Wow.
So when you really think about it like that, and that's every day you're going to get pastries, Starbucks, some kind of fast food, but we don't think about it like that. And so that's the biggest mistake. And now that this pandemic, we're here, and I believe we're on the verge of coming out of it. Now the number one question is, what do I need to do to change my behavior and get back on track? The first thing I always suggest is you need to sit down and look at your situation. Where's your money going, right? What are you spending money on? And then look to see, are those items that you need? Are those items that you want? Or are those items that you can cut back on? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be in a position where 2 years later, you're saying to yourself, if I would have started earlier, if I would have did this earlier, because now is the time to start. That's the second mistake. People don't think there's enough time, and they think they have to have a lot of money, which is a third mistake. You don't need all of that. Sit down and do it now. Start with what you have and build upon that.
Yeah, and I was going to say that really seems to be an issue for people because if you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, then in your mind, you don't have enough money to save. You don't have any extra money to put aside. But I think when you break it down like that, what are the things you need versus the things you want? Because I think people find a way to buy what they want,
Yes.
along the way. So you have to change your mindset and not think I don't have any money to save, because even if it's $5, a week, that's better than nothing, because eventually it adds up to something.
In the classes that I teach, one of the questions that I start off with is, how much money do you have to have before you start investing? And it used to be where you couldn't talk to financial people unless you came to the table with 25,000. Now, and you said this before, with apps, with all these robo apps at Robinhood, Acorn, $5 to start, because you can buy fractional shares. You don't have to buy the whole share now. And so there's really no reason, when you look at what you're spending money on, that you can't come up with $5 a month to invest, And so it really boils down to what I call the come to Jesus moment. Either we gonna decide to do this or we're not. That's the choice. Do you want to be better? Do you want to make preparations, or don't you? It ultimately comes down to that choice.
Yeah, and that was off air. We were talking about those apps that exist, where people are investing. And there was the big story about GameStop and how the prices went up, and everybody was like going crazy over it. And so that's when I thought, so wouldn't it be amazing if everybody could understand how that works so that they could invest in it? So the apps exist, and people have heard the word stocks and heard about the stock market, but if you don't have a fundamental understanding of how it works and how you can get involved, then it's just something that you hear, right?
You're absolutely right. I did this session, and one of the issues was, investing. Most people look at investing as just, it's a money thing, but we fail to mention that you and I do this, investing in yourself. And so here's a pivotal time where, do you really want to take time out now to invest in yourself? That means, what don't you know? What can you learn? How can you empower yourself to become better, to put yourself in a better position? And so investing in a book called Investing Stocks for Dummies or something like that, that's still an investment, because you're learning how to navigate. You're learning how to move. Sometimes we miss that because we get to the end picture, but we don't understand that there are steps we can take to empower ourselves to get to that. And so, like you said before, if you are afraid, and I'll say this, one thing that this pandemic in these last 2 years taught us, it didn't discriminate. Everybody suffered at some point with this. And the question for many of us is, out of this, what will happen? What will come? People lost their jobs. People lost salaries. People lost businesses. People lost loved ones. Financially, if you don't want to repeat that, then what do you need to do to make sure you're in a better position going forward? And a lot of that means investing in yourself to learn the basics so you can start investing. It means putting your budget together so you can see that you can save $5 a month. So those are all the things that we should be doing now that we're on potentially the end of this pandemic.
Yes, and fingers are crossed and legs, everything that we are on that path. So, I mean, it's been tough. There's no doubt. And when you talk about the number of people who are really trying to catch up, because maybe they were in a position where before the pandemic, they didn't have any money issues. But, things have happened,
Yeah.
and people are in different positions. So they almost have to start from scratch. But you're
Yep.
saying when you know better, you do better. And so I always like to remember this one thing you said years ago when you were on the show. You said, as far as investing your money, you said if you're that person that has to buy that pair of Jordans every time they come out, then you need to be investing in Nike. Invest in what you like, invest in what you spend
That's
your
right.
money on. So that's something to keep in mind for sure. But I'd like to quickly talk about the importance of credit. With the
Yes.
pandemic, a lot of people's credit has kind of been
Yeah.
affected as well for obvious reasons. So like to remind people that they can get a copy of their credit report free every year from the three major credit bureaus, which is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. They can go to annualcreditreport.com. But talk about, once you get your hands on that credit report, what should they be paying attention to?
You know, one of the things that you should be looking at once you get your credit report is what things can come off of it. I'll tell you this from being in the industry and from talking with credit experts. A lot of times people don't want to deal with it because it's work. But if you get your credit report, you can write to the credit bureaus and look at what's on there and what things may potentially come off, which would boost your credit. And so once you learn that, which is in addition to your budgeting, look and see where you're getting hit, because I'll say this, it costs more money to be poor. And when I say that, I mean, if you have bad credit and you know how this works, you bought a car, you bought homes, when you go and they want to extend you credit, what happens if your credit is not good? They charge you more money.
More interest.
That's right. So you're paying more money because you have bad credit. So in essence, it's costing you to be poor. It's costing you when your credit is not good. So you want to get your credit report, look and see what things have you been late on that maybe you can start paying on time. What bills can you maybe knock off? Start with your lowest ones first and move to the bigger ones, or vice versa. Some people say start with the bigger ones and move to the lowest one. I say move to what you can handle very quickly so it can get off your credit report and it's not penalizing you. But you want to get your credit report, devise a game plan for that so you can increase your score.
Yeah, and you also just want to look at that credit report and make sure that everything on there is correct, because a lot of people find out that their identity has been stolen and everything else by taking a look sometimes. So that's a whole nother conversation, of course. Wanted to talk about the credit score, because a lot of times people say, well, I'm not looking to buy a house, but you'll be surprised. The insurance companies look at your credit score on how much they're going to charge you to allow you to drive your car. Even a landlord that's renting you an apartment is looking at your credit score.
And some employers.
Absolutely. And not to mention, there are cell phone providers also who say, can we give them this new phone that's worth $1,200? Right. So it's something that's people...
Which you probably shouldn't be buying anyway.
But I'm just saying, it's things that we think that everybody understands these things. And, you know, that's what this Literacy Month is all about.
Yes,
so your nonprofit really did, like I said in the beginning, you help people better understand what they can do, what they can do better. So where can people go for more information on that?
So on the Financial Promise Foundation, I usually partner with other individuals around investing. We bring in credit gurus. We work with banks, and you can go to www.thefinancialpromise.com. When we have upcoming classes and courses, typically we offer them for free. You know, sign up. We'll love to have people there, but it's usually we touch on investing, saving, your mindset, and credit. And we'll start doing some things with real estate, because as you said before, coming out of this chaos and turmoil, a lot of people are starting over. And so we need to get back on track with your credit, understanding your financial plan. If you had one, if you didn't, you need to get one, and what kind of moves you can potentially be making once you understand and receive the knowledge.
That's right. In the words of Cardi B, making money moves. So speaking the language that people understand.
That's
So
right. That's
I
right.
thank you so much for your time and the information today. And I'm hoping that someone is encouraged to kind of take a look at things and
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm going to do better, because when we know better, we do better. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Soror.
Absolutely. Jason Fields is the president and CEO of Madison Region Economic Partnership. He's a certified financial education instructor and certified capital raising specialist. And when we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll continue our focus on financial literacy and find out more about Fund My Future Milwaukee. We'll do that right after this.